This is Professor O'Donoghue. Today we're going to talk about do-while loops in C programming. So think about this scenario for a minute. You want to create a program that will calculate the average of a list of grades. So you're going to want the user to enter all the grades that they want included in the average, right? So that means you're going to have to keep requesting the user to enter a grade until they get to their very last grade. And then you're going to have to know what the last grade is, and then you're going to have to take an average of the grades. So one of the most efficient ways to have the user enter the grades is to use a loop. And we've already talked about while loops before, and you could use a while loop, but you could also use a do-while loop, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Because a do-while loop works pretty much the same way as a while loop in that it will continue to execute a block of statements until a condition becomes false, right? So in this case, say you tell the user, when you're done with your last grade, enter a 0. So the loop will keep going until the user enters a 0, and then the loop will stop, and the program will know that now it's time to average those grades as opposed to just taking those grades in and storing them into a variable. All right, so let's start our notes. So I've already answered the first question. What is a loop? Or what is a do-while loop? Or no, I'm sorry, what is a loop? It's used to execute a block of statements repeatedly until a condition becomes false. When that condition becomes false, then the loop stops and the control of the program moves outside of the loop. So, what is the difference between a do-while loop and a while loop? There's only one crucial difference between a while loop and a do-while loop, and that is the body of the do-while loop is executed once before checking the test conditions. So a do-while loop is always executed at least once, as opposed to a while loop that just may not execute if the condition statement is never true. All right, let's look at the structure of a while loop, of a do-while loop. First, you have the keyword do. Then you have your brackets that indicate you have a block of code that follows. So in your brackets are the statements that you want to be executed repeatedly. Also inside your while loop, you call it the while loop body, you have to increment or decrement the variable that you're using in your test condition. And then after the body of the do-while loop executes, then you come and you test the condition. If the condition is true, you go back up and you execute the body statements again, and you increment or decrement again. And then you come down and you test the condition. And this is circular. This keeps happening until you finally test the condition and it's false. Okay? Let's look at a flow chart because that makes it visually easier to follow, I find. So for the flow chart, you probably had some sort of code statements above, right? You don't necessarily always start your program off with a do-while loop. So this white block is just prior statements that you made until you got to the do-while loop body of your program. So then what happens is in this body, you have several statements that you will execute at least once. You will come down and you will test the expression. If the expression is true, you will go back up and you will execute the body once again. You will come down, you will test the expression. And this is a loop. That's why it's called a do-while loop. It just keeps happening over and over and over until finally you test the expression and the expression is false. Then you leave the do-while loop and you move on to the next expression outside of your do-while loop. So, of course, the best way to understand what's going on in a program is to run the program and see what happens. So, let's look at our first example, do while 1. So, this program is going to print a variable j while it's less than or equal to 3. All right. So first, let's analyze the code itself. Of course, you have your main function block right here. You declare and initialize your variable. So we declared j and we initialized it to be equal to 0. All right, so now we come down to the body of the do-while loop. And this body is going to be executed at least once. Okay. So what do we say to do? We say printf, the program is inside of the do-while loop, because after this do statement, you're inside the loop. Right? It's going to print the variable j is, what the value of variable j is, and then of course we're going to increment our variable. Right? Then after we execute the body, this part, once, we're going to come down to our test condition and we're going to look and see if j is less than or equal to 3. If it is, we're going to go back up and we're going to repeat this block of code again, and we're going to come down and we're going to test it. And if it's false this time, then we're going to leave the loop and we're going to go to our first statement outside of the loop, which is a print statement that says now the program is outside of the do-while loop. And it tells us what the value of variable j is. All right, so let's go put this program into code blocks. All right, so here's the program inside of code blocks. So let's build it and compile it. All right, let's see what's going on here. Okay, so if we look at the first run, it says the program is inside the do-while loop. J is 0 because, of course, we started out by initializing j to 0. So we printed our printf statement and the value of j. Then we tested. J was 0, so we went back up. We got another print statement. This time, j is 1. All right. Then we increment it and we test it. J is 2, so we go back up. Oops. We go back up again. Now j is 2, and then we increment j. It becomes 3, so we come down here and we test it. Well, j is still less than or equal to 3, so we go back up. We print j is 3, then we increment j to 4. Now when we come down to test, j is 4. It doesn't meet the criteria. It's false. Our condition is false. So we drop out and we print the program is outside the while loop. And it's because the value of variable j is 4. Alrighty, let's come down to our next question. How do the outputs of these two programs differ? So basically we have two programs. One is using a while loop and one is using a do-while loop. So let's see what's going on with the first program that's using a while loop. Okay, so this program is going to print in the while loop while execution is taking place inside the loop. And it'll print out of the loop once execution drops out of the loop. Alright, so let's go down. We've declared and initialized our variable I to 0. Alright, so this is a while loop. So remember, for a while loop, the test condition comes at the beginning before we ever get into the body. So we're going to test. Is I equal to 1? Well, no, because we set I to 0. Alright, so we should never even print in the while loop. Basically, execution should drop to print out of the while loop, and it should say it's out of the while loop because I is equal to 0. So let's go to code blocks and run it and see if the output behaves as we predicted. Okay, I put the program in code blocks. So let's build and compile it. And let's see what happens. Well, our first line says, out of the while loop because I is equal to 0. And that's exactly what we expected. We never met the condition, so we didn't go inside the loop. Okay. Alright, now let's see what happens when we use a do while loop instead. Okay. So it's supposed to do the same thing. It should print in the do while loop if the program makes it inside the loop, and it will print out of the loop once execution drops out of the loop. So let's see, once again, we declare and initialize I to 0, okay? But remember, this is a do while loop, so that means that no matter what, we're going to go through the body of the loop at least once. So we expect the output to say in the while loop, okay? Then we get down here and we test the condition while I equals 1. Well, I is equal to 0, so our variable doesn't meet the test condition. This test condition is false. So then we should drop out of the program and print out of the while loop. Alright, let's go see if that's what happens. Alright, we're back in code blocks. Let's build and compile. And what do we have? Well, first we have our first line that says in the do while loop because we were expecting that we are at least going to go through the body once before testing. And then we have out of the do while loop because I equals 0. So when we came down here to test, just like we predicted, I is equal to 0. So it doesn't meet this test condition. So we drop to the next statement, which is out of the do while loop. Alright, we have our final program. This program is supposed to add numbers until the user enters a 0. Alright, so we come over here, we declare as doubles the variable number and sum because we want meaningful variable names. We come through, we ask the user for at least one number. So this is why a do while loop is very good. When you want the user or you want the program to do something at least once before ever testing the condition. Alright. Once we get out of the loop, we're supposed to say out of the do while loop because the user entered a number which should be 0, and then we print the sum. So let's run it. Alright, we put the program in code blocks. Let's build and run it. Alright, it comes up. It wants to know, it wants me to enter my first number, I enter an 8. Enter my second number, I enter a 10. And then I'm tired of entering numbers, so now I'm going to enter a 0. Alright, so just as we expected, I was in the loop, I had the two numbers, and then once I entered a 0, that took me out of the loop, and my sum is 18, just like expected. Okay, so that's it for do while loops. So I suggest you write a summary. Basically, the difference between a do while and a while loop is that the do while will execute